Today marks the day when South Africa lost Miriam Makeba, the South African singer, songwriter and activist who passed away November the 9th, 2008 at the age of 76. Dubbed Mama Africa, she was a beacon of hope and strength for African people and a fearless champion of human rights. Born in Johannesburg in 1932, Makeba started singing as a child in her church choir, while she soon rose to fame in the 1950s with the all-female group, the Skylarks, and went on to become the first African woman to win international recognition with her hit song, Pata Pata. She performed in some of the most prestigious venues around the world, including Carnegie Hall, the Royal Albert Hall, and the Kennedy Center. Professor Neo Lekgotla Laga Ramoupi is foremost scholar about liberation music and cultural resistance on Robben Island. He's an associate professor of history at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein, South Africa. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight on Late Edition.
Thank you for inviting me. Good evening.
What do you see as Miriam Makeba's most lasting legacy in South African history?
It's the music, it's the songs. When we have weddings, you cannot have a wedding without Mama Africa, right? But for us who are teaching history in post-1994 South Africa, it's important that we bring the songs into the classroom, right? For example, I'm teaching the history of the Cold War with a special focus on Africa. And it's important to bring the songs that Miriam Makeba has sung. I mean, if you teach about the Congo crisis in 1960, from 1960 to 1965, Miriam Makeba, after they assassinated Patrice Lumumba, Miriam Makeba had a song, about Patrice Lumumba. So if we bring the music, which is a source, it's a historical source, if we bring it in the classroom, the students are having fun at the same time studying. So for me, the songs, the body of songs of Miriam Makeba are really Mama Africa's legacy that will live forever.
How did her exile shape global awareness of apartheid?
I love that question because I studied for my PhD at Howard University in Washington, D.C. from 2003 to 2006. So when I was doing my research in the Library of Congress, I was looking at South African songs. Every time I type songs, South African songs, Miriam Makeba will come up. So from 1959 actually, Miriam Makeba is documented in American newspapers, So that's very, very important because Miriam Makeba lived in New York, in America for a long time. My professor at Howard, when I was introduced, African-American professor, Professor Joseph Harris, I told him, I'm now Lekgotla Ramoupi, I'm from South Africa. I'm researching on songs. And he said to me, Miriam Makeba. He said to me, Miriam Makeba's music, even though it was sung in African languages, it introduced to America the anti-apartheid struggle. Her music conscientized America and African Americans in particular about the struggle. That's very, very important. But my research is really trying to focus on the two exiles of Miriam Makeba, which is exiled in America and is exiled in Africa, which is ironic because she's from Africa, right? But she had to leave America because Miriam Makeba was married to Stokely Carmichael, who's a leading figure in the Black Power movement, and the CIA Central Intelligence Agency in America, where after her husband, and that's how they left the United States, moved into Africa. They say that Miriam Makeba had 10 passports from African countries. That's how the African continent respected Miriam Makeba. Makeba's exile in Africa is so unknown. We know much about her relationship with African-American activist Nina Simone, her friend, Harry Belafonte, who helped her to settle in New York. But we know less about Miriam Makeba and about 10 or so years that she spent on the African continent, in particular at Guinea-Conakry. They speak French. I can't speak French. I'll have to get someone who can help me with looking at the material, the newspapers about her time there. Miriam Makeba is very, very important in the United States because in the early 70s, she spoke at the United Nations, in New York, representing the anti-apartheid movements. And I really need to emphasize that she was representing the anti-apartheid movements. She was not representing a particular movement. She was representing the anti-apartheid movement. And in my research, I'm trying to look at Miriam Makeba as this Pan-Africanist activist and also a philosopher through her body of music and songs. The other element that we need to look at with Miriam Makeba in the United States and also in Africa is that she conscientized people about African clothing. She was very proud to dress like an African. She had this interesting hairdo that symbolized that she's from the continent. And it became some sort of a, fashion statement. That's very, very important to also consider as part of her activisms.
Do younger generations today still connect with her music and activism?
I don't think that generation is young. What's her name? The musician lady who was part of Boom Shaka. No, I can't remember the group now. But she has been, her name will come to me. She has
You're
been,
not talking about,
when she came up.
Are you talking about Lebo Matosa?
No, not Lebo,
Okay.
not Boom Shaka, but what's this other group? It just escaped my mind. But this is the generation that came, during the Kwaito music in the post-1994. When she came up, they felt that she was a young Miriam Makeba. This is after 1994. The generation today, there are musicians who are still looking up at Miriam Makeba. Simpio Dana, for example, she's not young, but that musician, it's a generation of Simpio Dana. They are really singing and really representing Miriam Makeba's legacy. Today's generation, when you look at Amapiano, they are very famous. Their music is a different genre, but we can also say it is taking this activism in terms of South African and African music genre into the world, right? I have 4 boys. I would say the only time they listen to Miriam Makeba is because we're playing Miriam Makeba. But I hope that when they get married, they'll be able to say, Daddy, can we have a Miriam Makeba song? I see Miriam Makeba's body of work as more of an archive, right? It's a musical, and I have this term that I use is songical. It's song with ICAL, songical. It's an archive that is so important. Whether you are driving, I work in Bloemfontein, but my family is in Midrand, Gauteng. So I'm a migrant labor commuting between the two provinces. I still play Miriam Makeba. I drive an old Mercedes. It plays CDs. I still play Miriam Makeba's songs in my car. And it just makes the trip so short. But in a sense, I feel like I'm in a classroom. I feel like Miriam Makeba is a philosopher. And
Prof?
the other important thing,
Prof,
yes.
I'm so sorry to interject. Once again, such a wonderful and beautiful conversation to have. And remembering her today, that was Prof. Neo Lekgotla Laga Ramoupi, Associate Professor of History at the University of Free State in Bloemfontein, South Africa, as we commemorate Miriam Makeba's passing years ago now.